Hi, I'm Kat Rosenfield.
And I'm Phoebe Maltz Bovy, and together we are Feminine Chaos. Thanks for tuning in. So we're going to start this week by talking about a personal essay that I've been thinking about a lot since reading it. And the personal essay is called, the title is How Marie Kondo Helped Me Sort Out My Gender. And the author of the essay is Sandy Allen, and the essay appeared on the website Them. So I'm just going to set this up a little bit because for the context of the article requires a bit of setting up. So Sandy Allen is a non-binary writer who uses they, them pronouns, but it's relevant to the whole topic of this essay that they were assigned female at birth and refer throughout the essay to a part of their life when they were not they, but she. So that's going to require a little setting up, but I think that should make that clear. So this essay has caused a bit of a stir on Twitter. There's a lot of it's gotten both a lot of praise and inspired a lot on my timeline of sort of feminist outrage, and we will unpack what all of this is about. So let's see. I guess just to maybe, Kat, do you want to start or?
Gosh, well, I mean, we should probably just sum up kind of.
Yes.
It's interesting because, this was one of these things where we have these two really timely hooks. One is Marie Kondo's show on Netflix, mm-hmm. and the other is I'm trying to think how to put this in a way that's sensitive. People who had considered themselves women for their entire lives,
yes.
In their late 20s or early 30s, coming to an understanding of gender that's rooted in sort of strangely conservative conceptions of what it means to be a woman.
Right. So it's these sort of new, it's like this. So I am going to, when we get a little later in this particular, in this segment, talk about what I think was a much better essay on that same topic from that same perspective. So it's not that all such essays would necessarily lead to the eye rolls that perhaps this particular one might have in some. But yes, I think that's right. It's these two topics. So basically the way that the essay begins, Alan writes, so it starts with what I'm not the first to pick up on. It was a very sort of heteronormative scene. They write, I bought Kondo's book. I have it here somewhere. It's the tidying book. I bought Kondo's book mostly as a ploy to get my boyfriend Rob to clean out his nightstand. And the essay concludes on a similar note. Rob and I married and moved to an old farmhouse in the country. I now have 2 floors of rooms to tidy. And they mention that there's actually a very equitable division of labor, but there is just something kind of, it reads like a very, in many ways, like almost one of the more sort of stereotypically feminine personal essays out there, because it's about clothing, it's about a partner who's a man, and about wanting to clean up where he's left a mess. But the whole point of the essay is that when Alan launched into this tidying with the Kondo timely, perhaps click eliciting hook, they realized that all of their more girly clothing and makeup and shoes and so forth was unappealing to them. They got rid of it, and that is how Marie Kondo solved the gender conundrum. So just another quote from the article, and that might be that there was a typo in the article, I'm not sure, or in my quoting, but anyway, it didn't take me long to see it, what the discard pile was. It was only the skirts, only the dresses, only the flowers and lace and sparkles. It was everything I'd bought, hoping that some colleague might say, "Isn't that cute?" So basically the idea is with KonMari, the method, and I also got the book when that was popular and tried like intricately folding my t-shirts, and so I'm really messy with clothing and stuff, not like dirty, but really messy. So it didn't work for me. And there were just like strangely upright t-shirts jutting out of drawers for a while, but it did, I guess, work for them because they are neat, which I am not. But anyway, yeah. So the point was that this method, you're supposed to only keep the clothing that sparks joy, and stuff in general, but specifically clothing. So Alan realized that the girly clothing did not spark joy, got rid of it, bought some more masculine clothing, and this led to their epiphany about gender, basically. So that's the point of the essay. And that's how it all fits together.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah. So why?
I'm already so uncomfortable talking about this. I just feel like we're going to get in trouble.
Well, no, I don't think I have even all that out there or necessarily even problematic views on this topic. I think it's complicated. I think, as I said, I'm going to talk just briefly about I think much stronger essay that makes the case for, not the case for, I mean, obviously people identify how they identify, but sort of makes more of a feminist point in why someone might identify in this way, in a way that I feel like this essay was just kind of missing that point. And I think just to sort of jump out why I think I read it and felt a little, and others also, is because basically there's nothing remotely unusual about somebody who identifies as a woman and was assigned female at birth, a cis woman, feeling kind of meh about a bunch of girly clothing purchased in her 20s, getting rid of it, not wearing heels anymore, not bothering with makeup except if she's doing a blogging heads, in my own case, not bothering with a non-sweatsuit, again, except during a blogging heads, and you can't see the sweatpants I'm wearing underneath. And a lot of this just seemed kind of like, for so many reasons, to do with gender self-presentation, to do with just sort of life stage. Sometimes if somebody's depressed, they might wear less feminine clothing than if, you know what I mean? Like when you might wear sort of more drab clothing if you're unhappy, and more dressed up, whether it's feminine or masculine or somehow androgynous if you're feeling cheerier. You know what I mean? There's so many reasons that so many people who identify as women don't dress super girly, that to read an essay that's basically saying, I realized I don't like frilly stuff, therefore I am not a woman, was off-putting to people who are women and do not like wearing frilly stuff. Is that maybe a good...
Yeah. I mean, I think everything you've said is, it's obviously there are a million reasons why you might come to a different conception of what what aesthetic you prefer. I mean, when we talked about this, I just, we sort of chatted about it before this, and I described it as somebody realizing in their 30s that they actually are kind of butch in an aesthetic way, not in a sexuality way. And right. I think, that it's like you said, it's not uncommon in your 30s to find that the stuff you wore in your 20s is either not comfortable or just not you or your taste anymore. There's a lot of things that we do, and I think this is not just true for women, although maybe more so than for men, but that there are things that we do that are kind of aimed at performing this brand of femininity that's designed often to attract men, that maybe you stop doing once you are no longer seeking to impress 25-year-old guys with the way you look.
Exactly. Yes. I remember very clearly when in college it occurred to me that a miniskirt got a different reaction out than jeans. And also it wasn't so definitive, but I mean, these days I am not wearing minis. Well, I mean, if it's warm out, but I mean, certainly not. Yeah. I'm old.
I mean, it's a different thing than like, oh, you get married and you let yourself go, which is not really what we're talking about. It's more like,
although maybe that too, in a certain sense, because I think there are women whose sort of ultra feminine self-presentation is something they do really for themselves or for other women, or however you want to put it, and they for other women in this sort of straight sense of for other women, and do this because they genuinely enjoy, Sephora and the shoe store and all of this. And then there are women who do this in a kind of have more of a like utilitarian approach to it. And, it's the office wear that's going to draw the least attention, is the sort of gender normative office wear for whatever you are, and going out and being attractive will, if you're a woman looking to attract men, mean, like mini skirts and heels and things like this. And I think if you had that sort of more utilitarian approach, and then you're in a couple and you don't need to go to an office and look cute, maybe you would give it up. And is that letting yourself go? I mean, it's not the same as letting yourself go in the sense of like, as I did recently, but I will plead pregnancy, eat just so many potato chips that there's just never enough potato chips in your cupboard, or, but I think there is a sense in which maybe you just are past a life stage where you would want to dress up. And the question is, does any of this have any relation to that essay, or is this its own thing?
Well, I mean, I think that in the past, you might have had an essay like this, and the conclusion would have been, and that was how I realized the freedom of adopting an aesthetic that's more me, but without the added layer of, and me is not a woman. That's like the contemporary. That's what made this such like a trend piece, and I think what makes it such, something that a lot of people are kind of looking askance at.
Right. Well, I think that's what's so tricky about it. And I think the reason I've been thinking about it so much, I mean, partly I've been thinking about it so much because I think apart from the conclusion, and that's why I use they, them pronouns now, it could be me. I mean, I used to dress up more. I definitely own clothing from women's sections, men's sections. And when again, pre-pregnancy, I would sometimes even get stuff from a children's section. But I don't dress super girly generally. And somehow, the whole question of, and then I went, the part of the essay was like, and then I went into the men's department, and it's like, women do this all the time. And it's so much harder. Like if a man wants to go into the women's section and try stuff on, that in our society will be taken as a big statement. And,
yes.
And I think, it's a little, But
well, the other thing about it too was that she was very caught up. I'm sorry, this is hard for me. The non-binary pronoun thing is hard for me. Apologies. They were caught up in kind of this imagined perception, other people looking at them, and there was a lot of kind of assignation of intent, or just assumptions happening. There was this description of, I think, maybe going into a women's room and being, am I remembering this correctly?
Well, the thing that I noted a quote about this, there's this, sometimes people think I'm male at first and then realize I'm not, usually when I talk, and sometimes I then see a wild anger in them.
Yeah.
Is it the wild anger? Or one of these, that part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that part definitely stuck out to me. This again is something that I think has become a contemporary trend in journalism, or like journalism / personal essays, where you have people sort of imagining how they're being seen by somebody else and then spinning this narrative from there, even though it may not actually.
Absolutely. So I wrote about this like a million years ago, and it seems to have really taken off, though more recently, this sort of like feelings projection writing, although I wasn't really talking about, I guess a little bit about personal essays, but just this notion that you can base an essay on the feeling you have about how others are looking at you. And the most sort of notorious case of this, even though this was years ago, people may remember it, was where a white thin woman wrote about her yoga class and how she imagined that a heavier Black woman in her yoga class surely felt during that yoga class, and she had no idea how this woman felt during that yoga class. And this was in an Exo Jane personal essay, and it was very controversial at the time. Anyway,
right. The thing that kind of strikes me as being like slightly, I mean, as it's going to be a new twist on that, is that now it's still about you, the essayist. But it's about how you imagine other people see you.
Yeah.
And I sort of wonder if this is like, is that a function of social media? Like, you know, we only are the image that we curate, and we rely on this audience to kind of tell us whether or not, like, to tell us who we are or tell us if the image we're curating is working.
I think it has something to do, at least in this case, with the sort of, and this could segue into so many other topics, but sort of the culture of not questioning if something seems to be coming from a marginalized place, and the culture of saying, you felt that you were getting a funny look, surely you were. It is not my lane to question whether you were getting a look. You know what I mean? And maybe they were getting a funny look, but the thing about a funny look is it's a very hard thing to really use as evidence for anything, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that actually were, I mean, not to go back into the whole, like, what was it, Covington?
Yeah, I was just thinking
the smirk, but it's, you can't read too much into a look, and yet people do. But I guess, well, so one thing that what I've been trying to figure out though with this essay is, does this or does this not have anything to do with something that I've written about in the past and found kind of both understandable and infuriating, which is this genre of essay that I've called Fauxbivalence, like F-A-U-X, faux, like, where, and now I'm talking about other essays, and mostly from a while ago, although there's a recent one that I'm going to mention, where these are women's personal essays about, and that is a baby in the background, about marriage, how apropos about marriage, domesticity, things like this, where the essayist will basically say, sort of, I'm not conventional. All the creatures are up.
Dog in the background.
where an essayist will say something like, I'm not conventional. My desire for marriage, kids, wedding dress, whatever, is different from that of other people because reasons. And on the one, so there were a bunch of essays from a long time ago that I still think about, but the most recent though was an interview with the participation of Miley Cyrus that was in Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
And this is a slightly extended quote from Miley Cyrus because it's necessary. Okay, so we all know Miley Cyrus, and if not, you can Google who's Miley Cyrus. So she apparently does use she. I checked about Miley Cyrus. This is a quote from Miley Cyrus, to be clear, because if people think this is me, it's going to seem very unlikely. Okay. Being someone who takes such pride in individuality and freedom, and being a proud member of the LGBTQ plus community, I've been inspired by redefining again what a relationship in this generation looks like. Sexuality and gender identity are completely separate from partnership. I wore a dress on my wedding day because I felt like it. I straightened my hair because I felt like it. But that doesn't make me become some instantly, quote, polite hetero lady, end quote. No longer Miley Cyrus talking.
On behalf of polite hetero ladies, what the
definitely when Miley Cyrus whips out the good old hair iron, it's definitely different than when other women
do. When she does it, it's a radical act of self-care.
It's really impressive. Definitely.
She uses it in a unique way.
Definitely not to, reduce frizz or whatever. No, definitely different for Miley Cyrus. But that type of thinking both is and isn't, I think, relate. Like, I think there's something where it's very hard for me to read something like the essay in them without thinking this is just some sort of new branch of that phenomenon, of this sort of where somebody who, in most of these essays that I'm talking about, who is a woman, will have really conventional desires, and there's nothing wrong with having those desires. I make no claims to being unconventional myself. Messy, but not unconventional. But where someone will say that it's different because it's them. And I get it, and I'm sympathetic to it, because I think there is this assumption that anytime a woman is interested in any aspect of sort of conventional heterosexual life, that it's just sort of that she's dull, basically. There's nothing to her, and that's a sexist understanding of things. But then again, it is an understanding of things that's out there. So I understand why a woman who wants to marry a man would want to say, but I'm different. But I don't sympathize with it, really, because I think it's like, no, every woman is different. Everybody's different. All people are different. It's not just that you are special. Everybody's special. And then I keep thinking of that line from Miley Cyrus, the polite hetero lady that she's defining herself against. And it's like, what? So then the question is, and I think there was one part of this, of Alan's essay that I thought, where that really sort of hit home, where I thought maybe it is more like this. And then I'm going to kind of go to where I think maybe it isn't more like this. But anyway, they write that they went to Dyke March, which I understand to be a lesbian march, a lesbian event, and wrote that they felt for the first time ever like I was surrounded by my peers. Now, I just wonder, not to do feelings projection myself, but fine, to do some feelings projection. How would somebody who grew up as a lesbian feel about somebody who grew up as a woman, no longer identifies as a woman, identifies now as non-binary, but has a male partner and presents as still somewhat, I guess, androgynous? How would somebody like this feel about somebody like Alan going to a Dyke March and saying, these are my people? And I don't know. I guess I just don't know.
I mean, it's a curious.
I would assume there'd be a range. I would assume there would be a range of opinions on this.
Yeah. I mean, I am interested in how this kind of intersects with, what you were talking about with the Miley Cyrus interview, which is this desire to position one's, entirely conventional tastes as somehow unconventional, which, I mean, this topic makes me very cranky, and I'm not super charitable when I encounter stuff like this, because it seems like this attempt to kind of have your cake and eat it, where you're saying, well, I want to do all this conventional stuff that I find rewarding for all the same reasons that, that everybody who does the conventional thing does the conventional thing. But I also still want to feel like I'm super different and special and unique. And I think that's not a new thing. Like you were saying, you have these essays dating back to, the dawn of the personal essay, in which women are kind of trying to, I don't know, to have it both ways, where they're talking about their desire to get married or have a wedding ring, or, to change their last names, but they're doing it for like special different reasons. But that's the thing, is that it's like, I want to be different and special, while treading this incredibly well-trod path. And there's something, I don't want to say juvenile about it, but it kind of, it feels very teenaged to me.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of how it's presented. And I think part of the problem, so there are a couple things going on there. I think part of it is, I think some people who genuinely I'm taking them at their word for it, identify as non-binary, and that is who they are just maybe not as good at articulating this as some others. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I think the problem maybe in an essay like this is, so I don't think personal essays should have disclaimers. I don't think that there's any point, and I generally find it pretty annoying when a personal essay says, this is just my view, and and lists their categories. And, I think like let the essay speak for itself. It's assumed this is just one person's view. But I think the problem with writing a personal essay where the point of it is, I don't like wearing skirts, thus I must not be a woman, is that there are all these women who are going to be offended, basically, who also don't like wearing skirts. So I think the juvenile aspect may be sort of like that it was sort of poorly articulated, if that makes sense. That
yeah, maybe. I'm not even sure if I would, that I necessarily would put this them essay about, Kondo and gender into that category, but I do think it's a thing.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the reason I think that it might be something different, but just poorly articulated, is because I'm thinking about just a much stronger essay. So I was reminded of both the Miley Cyrus thing and sort of way on the other end of the spectrum, an essay by Andrea Bennett, a Canadian writer who uses both she and they pronouns, and who I know from Twitter, and who seems like a really great writer in general. But the essay in particular I'm talking about, it was in Hazlitt, and it's called The In-Between Space. And I think it's like clearly just a much more strongly written essay, but it's just what I liked about it specifically was just that the essay addresses sort of head on this sort of feminist, without in it, not in a disclaimery way, but just sort of addresses this question of where feminism kind of fits into all of this. So Bennett writes, and so Bennett's basically writing about the same, sort of coming to the conclusion that she or they is non-binary. So so now I'm quoting Bennett: "If the world has told us for much of our lives that we are not quite women, and moreover, girl and woman never quite fit, is it our responsibility to forcibly expand girlhood and womanhood until it grudgingly accepts us? Can I not just be woman adjacent in peace? Identity exists at the crux point of internal and external pressures, who we feel we are and how others see us. Far from being discrete, one feeds into the other." And then so I'm still quoting, but this is the part I think really gets at this. "I have no way of knowing how I'd feel if I hadn't spent my youth feeling shamed into and failing at femininity. I wouldn't be a feminine woman, but maybe I'd feel more comfortable stretching woman till it fit. As it stands, I'm not a woman and I'm not a man." End quote. So this I thought was super interesting because it's getting at basically, like, the whole essay is about a very specific childhood experiences and specific reasons for feeling like woman doesn't fit. And I think that made sense to me, because I guess for me, woman fits, but maybe if I'd grown up with a very narrow idea of what a woman could be, I would think otherwise,
Yeah, it's there is an interesting question. I guess obviously, it's addressed in that essay. Why would you change your conception of yourself rather than changing your conception of what the word woman means?
Well, I think it has to do with the, as I understood it from the essay, just sort of like the rigidity of it. Like if it just seems like you've been told your whole life, woman is this, you are not that, you are not that. I think it's just, I can understand it. I can't relate to it, but I can understand it, if that makes sense. But I guess what it really always comes down to is there some sort of political obligation for everybody who is treated in society as a woman, treated reproductively, anatomically, whatever, as a woman by I'm not a religious person, so by the anatomy gods, whatever, anybody who presents whatever, however to put this that way, is there some sort of feminist obligation to then say, I am a woman, and expand the category of woman or not? And I guess I don't think that I don't think you can make there be a political obligation to identify in a particular way. I do think, though, that people are sometimes setting themselves up for disappointment, especially people who are not in this category. We're talking about people in their early 30s or something like that. But certainly people who are much younger might be kind of setting themselves up for disappointment if they imagine that identifying as non-binary would somehow mean an escape from certain, and I say this having fairly recently given birth, from certain realities Um, yeah, I think that's kind of where I come down on the sort of politics of this.
That's interesting because I think that I come down on the opposite side of it. I think that, you know, when you do this, and what I'm reminded of is this essay that I read a while back by Becca Riley Cooper, who's a feminist, I think in
the UK, right?
In the UK, yeah. I think she may be like a radical feminist.
Yes, I believe so.
But she pointed out that when you choose to categorize yourself in this particular way as non-binary or as, you know, one of the, you know, 600 various genders that are currently available to us to live with which to label ourselves, that you're not only speaking for yourself, that basically you're cramming everybody else into a box so that you can identify as not having a box. That's a, you know, not exactly her words, but
I see.
And that, so, you know, basically like and I think that kind of goes back to the idea that these essays only can exist if there's this kind of vague group of conventional, like polite hetero ladies, you know, boring, like boo those people who you have to set yourself up against, you know, who have to be there, who have to be so dull and so square, you know, so that you can be super special.
Yeah. Now you're making me sway toward. I guess. I just don't know. I guess.
Oh my God! Did I just change your mind?
Well, the thing is, I want to have my cake and eat it. Definitely, because I think people should be respected in the identity categories that they feel fit them. I also do think, though, that there is something, I agree with that there's something conceptually happening where, I read certain essays of this nature and do come away thinking, well, by the standards of that essay, how could I possibly be a woman? How could I possibly be a straight woman, a cis woman, any of these things? Because that's not me. That's just been described. And yet I think, and then some might say that maybe I'm just in denial that I'm something else. But I think feminism has been that sort of the whole point of feminism has been that women are not just one particular very sort of dull way, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's not that I'm different, but it's that nearly all women, if not all women, are different.
Right.
That makes sense.
So I think, you know, I mean, if we go from that, I think that if you want to claim that you're a feminist, that maybe there is actually this political obligation to not decide that you're not a woman just because you don't fit certain kind of conventional tastes, you don't like to wear dresses, whatever it is. If you want to also claim the mantle of feminism. But then again, like, I don't, you know, I'm not the president of feminism. I don't make the rules. So
are you sure? I thought well, but feminine chaos, we're not called feminist chaos. So I don't know if we're allowed to make these rules, but
no, we've claimed the mantle of femininity, and also chaos, but not of feminism.
But also slightly tongue-in-cheek, perhaps, with all of it, and especially with the reference itself. Any other thoughts on this not at all fraught topic?
No, I think we should stop before I probably say something that will get me in trouble.
I have not, just a disclaimer, I have not slept in like a bunch of months now, really. So I don't know if I make any sense at all. But nevertheless, we press on. Yeah. I think we do have time to talk a little bit about the next topic because it's not quite as, well, I could babble about it forever, but we'll try to keep it a little more succinct. So we're going to talk about privilege acknowledgement. And people.
Oh, okay.
So not okay?
Not the guy.
Oh no, we will talk about the guy also.
Oh, okay.
But do you want to, or we could talk about the guy first and then privilege acknowledgement if we have time. Otherwise, we do privilege acknowement next time.
Privilege acknowledgement is kind of a topic in and of itself. What I like about the guy, you know, not to derail, but I think that he kind of fits into this whole like checking boxes, categorizing.
Okay, yeah, let's do the guy, and if we have some. That sounds. Let's do that guy.
Let's just do him.
That's exactly what's about to happen. we'll talk about the guy, and then so there's a bunch of funny and frustrating stories about people acknowledging their privilege, but we may hold that for next time. So the guy is it's this tweet from this man, some sort of life coach. Okay,
what's his name?
Alexander. So I have it.
Okay,
my document here. Alexander J.A. Cortez. His handle on Twitter, in case you want to follow him and learn about life, is at AJA, I think underscore, it looks like Cortez with an S. And the tweet that went so viral, I believe, or did it go viral or whatever?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Okay.
It became a meme. It went so viral.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. It was how to be, and then in capital letters, beautiful, capital first letters, the B and the W, how to be a beautiful woman. Okay. Kat, do you want to know?
I do, please.
Okay.
I've always wanted to be beautiful.
Okay. Well, here are the instructions. Be thin, be able to cook, have long hair, wear makeup. This is a good one for feminine chaos. Be feminine, be graceful. And then this one gets a capital letter and the S for some reason. Be sensual.
Ooh.
Shave, and then in parentheses, should without saying. I don't know if that means like that when you go to the bathroom to shave, you shouldn't say, I am going to shave now.
I think maybe it's meant to be,
I know it goes without saying. I like the should without saying aspect, silently shaving. Be fashionable. Wear pink and feminine colors. This is a good one. Love men. Okay. Listen to men. And then it ends, stay classy, ladies, exclamation mark. And then what I also love about this is so it's like his whole thread in this, and one of them is about the long hair. He himself, this is necessary for the description, has long, very flowing, impressive hair.
Yeah.
And he says that he will also offer the ladies tips to get their hair.
All right.
Nice.
So I just want to say, I'm not telling everyone to go and like Google image search this guy. I'm not saying it's an absolute gold mine of entertainment, but
I haven't even done that.
As in like an anthropological experiment, like it's quite something.
Well, he's using his physicality in all of this. And then he reacts to the ladies who are angry by saying, if you're angry, it might be because your excess body fat is causing hormonal fluctuations that make you emotional.
Oh my God. Okay, I missed that one.
He's a scientist. I mean, clearly he's done his biological research here.
So my favorite thing on this thread was that he started saying that he was only going to responded to women who registered an 8 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale, 8 out of 10 or higher.
And he specifies that the 8 is out of 10.
Right. Yes.
Because maybe people are not familiar with this concept of rating women out of 10 and might have thought he meant 8 out of 100.
Right. In which case he would have to be responding to a lot more people. And so that was like, I only respond to women who rate 8 out of 10 or higher. So if you haven't gotten a reply from me, don't feel bad, because that's why. Well, I mean, don't feel bad except that you're like ugly or, average. But
well, according to this gets into other stuff, but yes, I mean
why are we talking about this?
Well, you tell me why you think we are, and then I can say maybe it's the same reason, because we came up with this topic a while ago because it's amazing. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did become massively viral, and at the time we kind of debated what was motivating a man to do something like this, and why it so often seems to be that men make pronouncements like this, declaring that their personal definition of beautiful, in this case, which includes many things that have absolutely nothing to do with aesthetics at all.
Ability to cook, it's like, okay.
Right, and listen to men, like...
Love men. Be heterosexual, ladies who are heterosexual and thus want tips for dating men, or I don't know. It's very strange.
Right.
Well, it was like that French novelist, the guy who's 50 and only dates very young and only Asian women, and made some pronouncements about this, and then all these French 50-year-old women were like, but I'm very beautiful, and it was kind of like,
right, yes. Or the guy who said that women shouldn't wear yoga pants, and then a bunch of women in yoga pants organized a parade past his house, which I have to feel is exactly what he wanted, actually.
That's quite likely, yes. Oh no, all these women in tight pants are showing up at my door. Oh no, how terrible.
That's exactly what I didn't want.
Oh no. Definitely, if like a parade of male models wants to, wear yoga pants.
No, you've got to reverse psychology them. Men, male models should never
frequent. Where do I go? I have a new baby, the supermarket. But yeah, so why, right. So that's the issue. I think we are on the same page of why to talk about this. Yes.
Right. But I think we disagree about his motivation.
Yeah. So why is it that men do this thing and not all men, #do this thing? Why do some men go online and sort of pronounce what a beautiful or attractive, whatever woman is like, / what an unattractive woman is like in this way, as if their preferences are somehow of universal interest?
Right.
Why do they do it?
So I had my mind changed on this by a random reply guy on Twitter, actually,
and you'll get more of those.
Credit to him, who pointed out that this guy is not just a life coach, but a life coach with a very male skewing clientele. He's like kind of the 2018 version of one of those guys who was like a pickup artist, who would tell you to neg women in bars, insult them kind of in this backhanded way, and that would get them off balance and would make them want to impress you and prove you wrong. And then eventually they, like several steps later, they would fall into bed with you. Not really sure what the intermediary steps were, but
right.
And I think
right as in I remember, not right as in that's how the world actually works.
Kind of gave yourself away there, Phoebe.
Yeah.
But no, I think that this guy actually made a good point, which is that when at least this particular man posts a list like this that is designed to attract outrage responses from feminists, and also just like to get him, get himself ratioed, get himself mocked. He's not doing it to impress women or to convince women of anything. He's doing it to impress the kind of guy who wants to be like this, his potential clients who are seeing this and who are like, ooh, like I wish that I could, make a list like this online and feel entitled to get what I wanted. And then to be completely dismissive of any woman who didn't rate above an 8 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale. Like, yes, I want that to be my life. And I'm going to go to this man who clearly is living that life and living that dream. And I'm going to get him to tell me how to do it. At least that's what I think the reasoning is, or at least I think it has mostly to do with that.
I think for this man, that could be. If that is his business model, I must admit I have neither Google image searched him nor searched for his business model, but that could be what's going on with him. But this phenomenon in general and the other one that I always think of, I did search for and couldn't find. It was, I think, Sally Hughes, a British writer, writes about beauty and other topics, wrote something ages ago about the men who chime in her, I think in the comments to her columns, this was, I think, in The Guardian, about like the men who say, but women are so much more attractive without makeup. With this sort of, thus women who they're never going to meet in a million years should somehow change how they present themselves for rando on the internet who feels this way. Mm-hmm. I think there's something, it's not that I think necessarily that the dynamic is that when men make these pronouncements, they genuinely feel entitled to decide how all women in the world present themselves. But I think there's just a certain asymmetry where you just don't get women making pronouncements about their own idiosyncratic taste. So I think let's just dismiss sort of offhand the men saying they want, thin, conventionally attractive women saying they want like tall men with a thick head of hair, sort of very conventional things that have nothing to do with what they personally, set that aside. Talk about people who have some sort of specific thing that they want that isn't just what society necessarily says. I think you're more likely to get a man making one of these sorts of pronouncements than a woman. Like, I don't think you're that likely to see online a woman saying men should all, men have to all, what would be an unconventional, wear berets. If a man is not wearing a beret, he is unattractive. He should just go away. I only want to hear from men who have 8 or more berets.
Beret wearers only.
Yeah. Sorry, it's like this novel I'm reading, there's a man who wears a beret, and this really made me laugh. And anyway, so I think that what interests me is almost less what's happening when the man says this as what this kind of does to women who read it. And I will fully admit that I get a twinge of this myself when I read something like this, where it's some man who is he? He's a rando on the internet. He could be somebody on Twitter with like a follower. It doesn't matter. But when there's something, because it points to something bigger about society and expectations on women, even if a rando, even I don't know it's a man, I don't have any reason to think that I would think this man was anything so special. I'm married and not looking for anything. It still can sting. It can still be like, I'm not good enough. You know what I mean? It taps into some kind of primal thing for women of knowing that we are assessed by on the basis of looks in a way that men aren't. Yeah. And even if it's this rando, like I feel like I have to make this sort of rational step, even though it's obviously happening like it's a millisecond, and I think, oh, well, obviously, and I roll my eyes, but like, yeah, I think there's something, and I think that's kind of why that type of trolling persists, even of women who...
I was going to say, it's like basically, I think we just proved that negging actually works.
Well, no, but it doesn't work in the sense of...
But then it provokes a response. It provokes the response that people
it does.
Think it does.
But I don't think it's necessarily... When a man says that women shouldn't wear makeup, I don't know that he's necessarily trying to pick up a particular woman. I think it's more, I'm talking more about...
No, but I'm thinking more about like the response that women have. Like you were saying, it's
being
guys
told you're unattractive
can
kind of prompt something.
Because you'll see.
It prompts, well, it changes the dynamic, right? It makes it that there's this dynamic where by virtue of commenting on your appearance, you have to care what the man thinks. Even if he's some man who you couldn't care less about and would find very unattractive.
Okay, but then what happens, and like you can see it play out in the replies on stuff like this, is that all of these women suddenly act like they have something to prove. And a guy will say like, women wearing red lipstick are gross. And all of a sudden his replies are full of, women taking selfies.
Oh my God, the brightly colored hair thread.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, girl, what are you doing? You don't need to prove yourself to this guy, but it inspires.
And they all call each other. Oh, yeah, there was some thread where was it an article or just some man online saying something? I think it was just a tweet about women shouldn't dye their hair weird colors. And then this huge number of often it was like very attractive, like very young women with these pictures of themselves with brightly colored hair and all telling one another that they looked really hot. And it was like, I wasn't quite how this was accomplishing. Yeah. Well, because it just sets up this dynamic where I think it's not tapping into any interest in that man from these women, but it's this notion that any man, any avatar possibly representing a man, because who knows, it could be that there is a cat doing this. Not cat you, but like, the feline persuasion or dog, or as, the whole joke about whatever, the New Yorker cartoon with the dog on the internet, but who knows who is doing this. A bot, I guess, would be the more modern way to put it. This notion, the mere fact of being judged, and I guess my feeling is it's important to take that sort of rational step and remember, who is this man? Why would is this even anybody? Why do I care? In fact, I don't care. But I think it's also kind of important to acknowledge why, not to acknowledge, just to remember why it is women may have that response, and not to just sort of laugh at the 50-year-old French women insisting that they're beautiful. And I mean, I've been to Paris sure they are. But yeah, I think there's something about this where it's just rational. Like if you're, if you're a woman and you're judged by your looks and you're primed to think about this, you think about it.
Yeah. And when you have one of these kind of parties that erupts in the comments on, some guy's post where he's saying something douchey, I think that, the women who are participating in this may feel quite genuinely that they're doing something empowering. It's like, we're destroying the patriarchy one rainbow hair reply thread at a time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's actually happening, but certainly like it seems to be a lot of fun to at least some of the people who are engaged in this kind of response. So, and that's fine.
Absolutely. Which segues perfectly to our final topic for today. Oh my goodness. Was that intentional, Kat?
No.
Okay.
I don't even remember what it is.
Okay. Well, it was beautiful because as beautiful as a woman who can cook and wears pink. RetweetWomen, the hashtag. Oh. We're just going to wrap up with that. So there's a hashtag, and I only had like a few minutes to try to Google where it's coming from, and I don't know why there is, but there is a hashtag. It has to do with Women's History Month, which apparently it is. And it's the RetweetWomen hashtag. And lots of people are tweeting hashtag RetweetWomen and pledging. I think the language here is important. They're pledging to amplify the voices. And this isn't a quote, but it's these words: pledging and amplify the voices of women on Twitter by nobly retweeting women on Twitter. So this is kind of the opposite end of the Twitter misogyny spectrum, or is it, from the guy with the voluminous hair and the sort of comically retrograde dating tips. So Kat, should we hashtag RetweetWomen?
It's kind of infantilizing, seems a little patronizing. I don't personally want to be retweeted just because I'm a woman. So I don't know. I mean, efforts like this to kind of like, the other thing that I saw that was interesting was somebody saying, spend your retweets as though you have a finite number, like you're really committing, to.
Oh, my timeline suggests people do not think they have a finite number, and I'm sure myself, I don't. Yeah, you can keep on retweeting. Do
you want people to hashtag RetweetWomen?
I guess it seems, I understand that, I guess people have measured this, and in certain areas men get retweeted more than women, and it's good to know that. But I guess I don't find that I'm being insufficiently, well, I can be a little devil's advocate-ish about this, which is apparently something only men do online. Only men are devil's advocates. Only men reply to people. But we were going to talk about that as well. The reply guys. Maybe we talk about reply guys next time. Reply guys and privilege for next time. And reply guy privilege.
Is that a thing?
No, I'm just putting words together. I'm going with the word salad. But the where were we with this? You were
going to play devil's advocate.
Oh yes,
on the
RetweetWomen. Yes, I will say that sometimes there will be some topic, and I'm trying to be very vague, where I know a lot about it, like maybe wrote a dissertation on it or something of that nature, and then I see that there are men who I know are like, they Googled it and now they're suddenly publishing on it all the time, and they don't seem to know that much about it, but they're just, they are. It's like the whole thing of the confidence, and I get that, and that maybe is somehow more obvious online. And there, this notion that women can say something like the whole cliche of like in a meeting where the woman gives an idea and then people only listen if it's the man who repeats the idea, that cliche. I don't think any of that is like imagined. I think that's all real. I think the problem with something like a hashtag RetweetWomen is it ignores that people are already retweeting women all the time without being self-conscious about it. It turns something that people are doing already into some kind of weird, like patronizing, just sort of like as if you'd have to think about it, which just, I just don't, I guess maybe I'm naive, but I think that when people retweet me, they're not thinking, oh, good, a woman. I'm going to retweet this woman. Good for me. I retweeted her. She's a woman. And I think that, this goes back to, not to rehash all sorts of things from blogging heads past, but with the Robin DiAngelo sort of notion that you should always be foregrounding people's identity categories in every single interaction. Mm-hmm. And I guess, do I want people every time they interact with me to be thinking, I am interacting with a woman, she has dealt with the following sexist issues in her life? No, like not every interaction has, and at the same time, I do think though that there is something with like a woman can know a lot and be less listened to sometimes. I think that's real, but I don't think hashtag retweet women helps, and it arguably might hurt.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about this in the context of this essay I wrote a couple months ago about cool guys who are these sort of performative male feminists.
An excellent essay.
Oh, thank you very much. It was in Tablet.
But I'm not just saying this because you're a woman.
Oh, I appreciate that. But this, the retweet women hashtag, like, it kind of makes me wonder, like, how many of the people doing this are willing to amplify or even respect the voices and opinions of women they disagree with. Like, are you, like, when you're retweeting women, are you really extending this the courtesy of the retweet to them on the basis of them being female? Or, are you still, perhaps incorrectly, in the spirit of Women's History Month, weighing the value of their words before you decide whether to retweet them based on their gender?
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to go somewhere different with this about the cool guys, that there is something about the man who says very sort of nobly, I will retweet women now, where he thinks he's making a feminist statement, but all he's doing is making it seem as if he wasn't previously retweeting women, and he has to be prompted to do this.
Well, I think it's like, this kind of self-important thing, and it's not just the self-importance of it, but the idea that you're doing something really hard, like you said.
Yes.
It is not hard to retweet women. Like, most people on Twitter are probably doing it unselfconsciously every day, without having to think about it.
I think that's really important what you say about the unselfconsciously, because I think the problem with something like this is it turns just sort of the day-to-day act of treating people of different backgrounds of all kinds, including that very different background that is women, as human beings, and turns it into a whole sort of exercise in self-consciousness, which doesn't be, So retweet women, but don't hashtag retweet women would be my endorsement. Retweet everybody you want to retweet. Don't retweet the people you don't want to retweet. Don't quote tweet the people who are just, random idiots. Don't say, as Kat, you've already pointed out, don't say I'm here for the ratio.
Right. If you retweet a woman with the goal of starting a pile on against her because you think she is so wrong, like, are you still retweeting women in the appropriate
What if you're
spirit?
Quote tweeting them? You can only quote tweet them if you say this.
Yes. or yes, queen.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And not the sarcastic. That always reads as sarcastic to me, but I guess sometimes people must mean it.
Yes. I think sometimes it's genuine.
I think I might be like too much part of some sort of version of online where that's always meant as sarcasm, but I'm sure there is an earnest place for it too. Perhaps somewhere else.
Could be. Well, I think that we've had a good run here.
We have. So there's more for next time.
Yes. Okay. Right. So this has been Feminine Chaos.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.